for those of you who don't know me, I think Matt's given quite a good introduction to the team at work do. But I will just give a quick sales pitch for. Sorry, where's my presentation? Have I got my presentation?
Keep pressing the.
Thank you. So a quick sales pitch for what our team does, and I think Matt's given quite a good introduction to about some of the tasks and certainly some of the synergies for both the work we're doing with Matt, but obviously its relevance to today's meeting. But it is our responsibility, our team is here, to take forward smarter traffic management. And we've mentioned future mobility, and we think our task is at the core of future mobility. We're focused on improving traffic management systems in the widest sense by embracing the digitisation of transport services and to ensure that these services are data-driven, interoperable and delivering improvements within a sensible business case. So quite plainly, data is at the centre of the services we promote. And the key operators and the owners of that data are you, the local authorities. So the driving force of our team is to work really closely with you, and we do that through a number of mechanisms. The Transport Technology Forum, and can I ask if anybody, with Matt referred to them, can I ask if anybody's actually heard of the Technology Forum here? Which is a far better representation of the last conference I did, because I asked and one person put their hand up, and I thought we're doing obviously a fantastic job of promoting the Transport Technology Forum. I'll come back to that, but great. So at least a lot of you know, understand where we're coming from and how we function. But obviously we also work really closely with the Transport Data Initiative, so David and I work very closely together, and again I'll come back to that theme. So we're well positioned to discuss data and local authorities. And Matt already mentioned that the UK Secretary of State, as if it wouldn't be the UK Secretary of State, but I put on my notes, that the UK Secretary of State publishes priority number 5, which was making Britain the best place in the world to do transport digitally, and that was a couple of years ago. And again, this was followed by a Secretary State round table on data, which concluded that there's a real problem with the availability of local transport data, and in particular, local highways data. And like we do for several other discoveries, a couple of which we'll discuss today with Baz here later, we need an evidence base to understand this and to consider how the department can help improve performance. So the Department of Transport commissioned North Highland Consultancy to take a user-centric 12-week discovery project to identify the opportunities and challenges for key user groups to maximise the benefits of local authority transport data across England at the beginning of last year. And so what I'm going to talk about today very much draws on the findings of those and the actions and recommendations and delivering those responsibilities. Key goals are up on the slide. I won't bother, it's not my intention to go through these, but clearly the hypothesis is that there is benefit in greater sharing of local authority transport data. And the clear message from this slide that North Highland found is that there is potentially significant benefit in opening local authority transport data sets. The effects of the use of open transport data, they believe, can be translated into direct and indirect benefits for key user groups, including local authorities themselves, the private sector, and obviously the travelling public. But the key point, and it goes back to the point that Paul made about what data do you actually hold, is that these high-level benefits can only be delivered from improved quality and wider sharing of data, not all data, because there's a large, wide landscape, but of high-value data sets. So the key is we've got to be targeted, and I think that was reiterated with Paul, the point that Paul was making earlier. Slightly paradoxically to that statement, North Highland found that there's a very, very wide base of local transport data. And obviously that varies from local authority across size, capability. But this is some of the landscape they actually found. And quite clearly, that the local authority focus is stronger in some of those and weaker in others. But of course, we're living on the Isle of Wight. There was a ferry connection. Ferry information was important. But for a lot of local authorities, you'll find that middle set is where quite a lot of the information was. And what what North Highland particularly found in talks to people was that there was higher value data sets than others. And some of the higher value data sets were around things which we all know about and talk about. Paul mentioned it before, real-time traffic information, traffic regulation orders, parking data, but other sets had less value. Whoops. Whoops. Go on, go back. Oh, well, I've looked to lost one. Which is a little bit unfortunate because we have a whole range of reports from North Highland, and I won't advertise and promote them now, but they are available on the website. The Discovery provided a significant amount of information. Teams spoke with 173 individuals across 94 public and private sector organisations, and their surveys attracted over half the English authorities. This is a really significant snapshot of the local authority transport data, of the transport landscape. So we feel we've got a really strong evidence base. Going back to what the Discovery is about, do we understand what user need is? Do we understand what capability is? That broad approach certainly gave us that outcome. And I do not intend covering all of the report because I've done that many times, but there are some key points. Whilst the benefits of publishing open data have been demonstrated by Transport for London, for example, where the release of open data has been shown to be generating annual economic benefits and savings up to £130 million a year, this success has not yet been replicated by other local authorities. There is good work out there, but it's in pockets. We've mentioned already the One Transport project, opening data across 4 local authorities, the West Midlands Data Incubator, the Transport Data Initiative itself, which all promote data sharing and good practice. But our research has shown that the local authority transport data landscape in England is currently complex, fragmented, and again, Paul, you may not agree with this, but with large amounts of data that are being collected and stored in silos by local authorities and the private sector. And the private sector is an important player in here. And importantly, there is little evidence that there is a cacheable value to local authority data. North Highland discovered that the private sector finds the local authority data market too difficult to navigate. 150 local authorities with not one single voice, and variable data quality, back to quality. Not surprisingly, skills, resource, investment were considered to be major barriers. For example, many local authorities lack the in-house skills they need to create data feeds using common data formats, going back to Matt's point. But looking at the recommendations, and these are very important because this is based about what the local transport data plan is focused on. The first recommendation is very clear. Local authorities need more support, and more support from us for departments. Not just investment, although this would obviously help, but clear intervention to define a national perspective and the role of local authority data. On a positive note, there was a lot of enthusiasm for local authorities generated by the project, and the department is building on this momentum by taking forward the recommendations. So what we've done. Again, I could spend quite a lot of time on this, but I think this was really important and something we should focus on today because that's why we're here, to think about how we can help and deliver more. So the first recommendation, local authorities should be helped to focus on making more high quality data open. So establish sector-led programs, again, very much why we're here, working with the TDI, working with the Transport Technology Forum to think about how the department could interface with local authorities. David and I are currently working together on a series of guidance notes for local authorities, and again, very much feeling what the local authority barriers are and how we, central government, can relate those back to you. Working with local authorities to scale proven data initiatives, and I think a really interesting point from Matt was about benefits, about building business cases. Very much what our team does, very much about supporting innovation, promoting innovation, and where we can, delivering funding and opening pilots so that we can discover where the benefits lie. Early days, and I'll come to some of the funding programs shortly, but the business case, for building the benefits case, is very much about what our relationship is. If we cannot demonstrate what the importance of technology is and the importance of doing something is, then it's very difficult to drive the pilots. So we're very much about piloting, understanding the business case, reporting those back. The third option there, the third recommendation is very much about the guidance. So when we go back to our help, funding is one stream, but it's not the only stream. We need to provide clear guidance about how local authorities should open the data, what the potential benefit streams are, where the best use cases are, exemplar schemes, and what we expect from national government, local authorities to be focusing on. So we will be commissioning for guidance very shortly. Our intention is we'll be commissioning it over summer and publish over Christmas, working very closely with the TDI and yourselves, hopefully, in scoping that work and looking about what you need from guidance to help you direct your attention to opening and sharing data. Unfortunately, I can't say too much about this, but we have currently just run a competition with local authorities to open up some of the data which are held by local authorities. Again, very much focusing on the high-value data, parking data, UTMC, real-time traffic information. Hands up, how many people actually have responded to the department's competition? Because I know there are several of you here. Yeah, in which case I definitely can't say too much, can I? What I would say is we have received some really high quality bids, and I think this reflects very well on the discussion we're having about working with local authorities, generating really clear guidelines about what we want, and hopefully building the business case to come. So we have got very high quality. We've had 25 bids, far in excess of the pot we have, so we're having to look very closely about what we can fund. But I think there's some really important points from it. Going back to this build this benefit case, we'll be looking to work collaboratively with those authorities which win, create a pool of knowledge, create a dissemination focus, and bring that back through the TDI and bring back through the groups which we're working with. I didn't do that. Honestly, I didn't. And one thing we've been very close to do is to work with the parking district. I think parking standards, parking data is really interesting. I think it's one of the key core components of our smarter traffic management agenda. There is a lot going on, and I'll touch on it briefly today, but I think one of the key points is that, and one of the key findings from the North Highland study is the lack of standards, the lack of interoperability. So we've been working with British Parking Association to consider about how we develop common standards for data parking exchange. And as you can see from this diagram, it's a very, very complex arrangement between private operator, between back office systems, between on-street curb management, back to a local authority, back to a road user. And what's really clear is we need some really clear, open, standardized parking exchange data standards. So what we've done, we're working with British Parking Association, working with our standards BSI people. We've created the first national parking data exchange standards, and we've tied the competition into those standards. So we expect the local authorities who are delivering open parking to comply with these parking data standards so we can start driving this. And these parking data standards are now being picked up by international, by Europe, by America. They're going to become worldwide parking standards. So a real breakthrough for the department, and hopefully something which will really demonstrate the value to local authorities. I won't dwell on this too long, but this is the standard framework. You can see where the standards are being developed, and the focus very much on curbside management, which, going back to smart traffic management, real key element of what we're looking at doing in terms of managing the network, managing connected autonomous vehicles, understanding how the curbside can better work, and to do that, we need common data exchange standards. We also were successful in attracting over £2 million of funding from the government GovTech Catalyst. So when you consider the money we have, and with 2.25 million, that's nearly £3 million we've already invested in local authority data this year. Again, we've received very positive response from local authorities. Over 50 proposals. We are currently at stage 1 winners. We have 5 initial stage winners. And from those stage winners, we've then gone to stage 2, where the local authority, private sector competition actually award up to £1 million for 2 proposals for implementation. Very much in our field. If you look at the couple of proposals, include using AI to analyze TCT capital and reuse of an anonymous journey. So very much about traffic, very much about real-time traffic information, very much about how we actually provide better data analysis, but also about collaboration, private sector, public sector. Big projects, again referred to by Matt. How can we, from the department, encourage and foster better local authority transport services? Very much the framework of today, create a framework and standards for local authorities to support current and future services. My colleagues will be talking about the local authority mobility platform very shortly, but can I just put a hands up if we talk about urban traffic management and control, UTMC, how many people understand that term? Yay. Again, at my last conference, 3 people put their hands up. I remember 2 people, one was the same person who knew what the Transport Technology Forum was, so good. So, the LAMP, my colleagues will be talking about very shortly, but it relates to a framework, to create a framework of standards for local authorities to support current and future services. The framework itself will be a primarily focused on helping local authorities procure future mobility services. So it's back to that term, future mobility. The framework itself will be a living document and will give the structure, tools and techniques that local authorities require to achieve its procurement activity. Really important. So if you like, it's comparable to the existing UTMC framework, but very much future focused about services which we're talking about when we're looking at smart parking, when we're looking at mobility as a service. How do we procure those? How do we create a national framework? And the single most important point about this is that it's a local authority-based tool, focusing at local authorities, giving them the tools and menus and the options for actually delivering future services. And going back to Matt's piece as well about standards, it's also intended that the framework sets out the standards and data requirements for the private sector, such as UTMC currently. To reference, this should help in developing products that are compliant back to the procurement system. We'll be certainly publicising the first draft framework with local authorities, hopefully over the spring. We'll be able to get a wider stakeholder engagement to help ensure that this realises the strategic framework that you, local authorities, need. So in summary, open, future mobility standards, sustainable, scalable, accessible, compatible, and affordable. And I think the key point of that is those are all based on local authority operations, local authority capability. With the investment which is going on, which Matt talked about with local authorities starting to deliver future services, we aim to work very closely with the leading developing authorities, work with the authorities we're already working with in our pilot projects to actually learn the benefits we accrue, learn the standards and the framework which we need to share, and provide those in a sustainable format for local authority. I won't dwell too much on the whys, because my colleagues are going to cover that. But I think it's self-explanatory. Current progress, again, my colleagues will talk about this in more detail, but the development guidance is the key focus for LAMP at present. We'll be setting future foundations. I'm moving to traffic regulation orders, because that is one of the key drivers from the North Island study. traffic regulation orders, again, show of hands, how much does that mean to everybody in the room? Which is reasonable, but we're hoping, we're having a framework session this afternoon with you about the discovery work which we're currently undertaking, so hopefully we'll explain a little bit more and you'll understand a little bit the importance to the work we're doing in terms of modelling of data. So in the UK, for those of you who don't know, highway authorities can only place various restrictions on traffic within the area by way of a traffic regulation order made under Parts 1, 2 and 4 of the Road Traffic Regulation Act. And I stress that legislative process because the North Highland discovery confirmed what we expected, that local authorities find the TRO process time-consuming, complicated and costly. So we've got a great solution. Yes, the department's launched another discovery. And this discovery is to investigate the options for modelling traffic regulation orders. So the project has been undertaken with my partners at Geoplace. Baz, put your hand up. Ordnance Survey and the British Parking Association. So the response the project is in response to recommendations in the North Highland Consultant's report on local authority data. And it's very much called for two things: to consider how we modernise TROs and how we digitise TROs. So it's about simplifying the process and considering how we digitise TROs for the future digitised requirements for connected, autonomous and the future mobility. So we believe this is an important contribution to the UK's industrial grand strategy, as Matt explained, and the aim is to make the UK a world leader in shaping the future mobility. The project will engage widely and is engaging widely. Again, could I put hands up? Who's been engaged with the process? There was an initial survey and with the follow-up surveys which we're now holding. Many local authorities here engaged in that? 3, 4. Okay. But it is a wide process. Baz will explain more about who and why we're talking to. But the key elements are about creating an evidence base, again, because of discovery, to understand more about the TRO process by engaging wider people. Very importantly, to understand who is reliant on traffic regulation orders and why. How the process works for them, so that's both the local authority and the user of traffic regulations, and how we might look to improve it in the future. Baz will be explaining in far greater detail about the scope. But the point is, it's a 30-point process, a lot of pain points in that process for local authorities and creating traffic regulation orders. Very regulatory, very time-consuming, very costly. We're looking to understand how that process works and the potential for providing understanding what those issues are and how we may address those. So the reason I asked how many people actually responded is we did actually get a really strong response from the initial survey, which asked people to engage with the TRO discovery and to get knowledge about their understanding and current issues with the process. How many local authorities did we get in total, Matt, Baz?
120.
So 120, which implies that that was UK, wasn't it, or GB?
UK.
So that certainly implies that the vast majority of local authorities engage with us, which is a really, really good response. And it's enabled us to be very focused about who we talk to, the issues we need to raise, and how we address those and how we target those. I'm really, really spoiling Baz's presentation because I thought I'd take these slides out. You might.
To say.
So, very much a wide selection of outputs, but one of the key points for you, for local authorities, is that we're providing a guide for local authorities on how best practice for the existing system. That's been built through a variety of processes, talking to local authorities, understanding through expert analysis, but through interface with the user discovery we're taking to understand what the pain points are and how we can best navigate those and approach in best practice. And I think very keenly, for this group, we're looking at providing a a data model which looks at the digitisation, looks at the end process of the TRO process and the information which is useful not only to the local authorities themselves but to the digitised network, to the potential users of the information, and of course when we're talking about connecting autonomous vehicles, about providing data, information about restrictions, about road closures, about changes to the network, and getting these in a standard form which can lead to further applications, wider application development, but most importantly provide a standard national compatible system. And I believe we are world leaders in this, and the world is watching what we're doing on this. A really exciting project. Matt also mentioned our data catalogue, so I won't spend too much longer on this, but we're required by European law to provide a national access point. The national access point is basically a data catalogue. The European regulation is very much focused on existing use cases, which can be quite narrow in terms. We're looking to see how we make this work really well for UK and for transport providers and for the people seeking transport data. It'd be very much a catalogue. If you think about yellow pages, where can I find this data? Where is it accessible? Very much looking at creating a catalogue which index all transport data, potentially multimodal, but specifically in the first stage, looking at all roads-based data. Really big ask. So we're talking about the data that local authorities provide, and highways maintenance, real-time traffic information, road safety information, creating a catalogue which embeds all road-based information, hopefully drive up standards, certainly provide a focus for open data, certainly provide a focus for improving access to data, and certainly provide the department with a key focus for moving on to a multimodal transport information. Very much in feasibility, certainly going to look into design stages in the next process, but hopefully we'll have something really solid which we can share and expose to local authorities in the next year. We talked about Traffic Technology Forum, we talked about my team, Smarter Traffic Management. What else do we do? And I've talked about piloting, getting those benefits. Very much that's the focus of the open data competition. As I said before, we want local authorities to open that data. We're very much clear on, very clear about benefit realisation. What is the benefits that local authorities are going to bring back? How do we monetize that? How do we get a really good use case? Answer Matt's question about what are the benefits of opening data? Doing very similar with smart traffic management, traffic management technologies. So we have funded 26 projects across the UK, demonstrated across on the map. Poole here, Portsmouth, Sunnyhill, Coventry, York, a wide variety of local authorities, 26 projects looking at how connected vehicle data can improve not only systems but also the information we provide to local authorities. We have 9 or 10 authorities working on collecting better road maintenance data from the systems. Really interesting stuff, ranging from dongles to actual variations to accessing information from a CAN bus from a vehicle. Many different systems looking at very cheaply how local authorities can get better road maintenance condition data, bring it back in a richer form for very little costs. So real value for money, aiming very much at where local authorities need the data. And to be successful in these operations, we need to disseminate. We need to make sure people understand what these technologies are doing, what the benefits are, what the wider use case is. Brings us back to the Traffic Technology Forum, which Matt mentioned and I mentioned earlier. We have recently, next week launching. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be relaunching the Transport Technology Forum, a key focus for private sector and local authorities to disseminate, to share and consider how best to improve traffic management, facing the technology barriers, think about how we can address those collectively and providing a work plan to help deliver solutions to that. And feeding into the TTF, we want best practice to come from several groups, and certainly the groups which we're currently funding, so smart parking, asset management, signal phasing and timing, which is very much a connected vehicle application, about data from traffic signals, getting that back to the user through apps, through development, so they understand when the next green phase is, providing potentially better signal coordination better throughput for a single junction, but more information to the user. So, very much focused on you, very much focused on providing applications which provide real benefits. The next forum meeting is 25th of March, and it's going to be held in London. I think, again, you sent the flyer out?
It'll be next week.
It'll be next week. So we'll be looking forward to seeing most of you there. It'll be held in London. Do we have a venue?
Not yet.
Not yet. So 25th of March, please note that. Not only do we have a forum, we also have a national conference. Last year in Newcastle, we had 150 attendees. Again, hands up, who attended in Newcastle last year? So a little bit of diminishing returns, but still a good return. Hopefully better next year, but please keep an eye on it. We put a lot of faith in this. So a lot of it's about coordination. A lot of it's about how we, Department of Transport, and our fellow organisations, Innovate UK, talk to you, the local authorities. And we have a really, really interesting story about how Carl and I discussed about setting up contact groups, especially so Innovate UK and ourselves can really organise ourselves, talk to you in one voice about programmes, about investment, about events, about consultations, to make sure that we bring all this together and we focus our discussions to local authorities through a single voice called the contact group. Carl takes the credit for setting this up, and Carl and I also take the credit for setting up the contact group, so that this unification, this single voice, will tell you about what happens in local authorities. So Carl and I then organise our national conferences on the same day. So contact will work a little bit better next year, and we won't organise the conferences on the same day. But that's very much the focus. So it brings together a lot of the organisations we're talking about looking at sector-led approaches, bring it together in one organisation so that we can funnel back to local authorities about what we're doing in a very clear, coordinated way. And the ambition, of course, is then we look at where research is, about where the research gaps are, how we collectively can address some of those issues. Again, sits very, very neatly with the Transport Technology Forum, because the relationship is, again, with local authorities. So just some next steps. You know, how many times I mentioned discovery? 2, 3, 4 times. So I think I might do another discovery, just because I'm doing the traffic regulation one. That might finish about April. So I think I need to do another one. So key recommendation from North Highland was better collaboration collectively with private authority, between private sector, really important, something we're promoting through the GovTech Challenge, but also across borders. So we very much promoted collaborative working in our funding for the local authority competition. But one of the key barriers which regularly comes up is the interface with data between local authorities and Highways England. And I think the chance for improving that relationship and actually getting real change is really immense. So I'm really looking forward to announcing a Highways England local authority data discovery to actually consider at a very basic level about how local authorities and Highways England communicate and exchange data, but also to understand what the capabilities are. What do local authorities want from Highways England? But vice versa, what do Highways England know about local authorities? Do they understand what their need is? And do they understand what capability you hold which may influence their network operations? So I think just a base understanding of who does what, how we do those, and to provide a common level of contact and exchange would be really interesting at the first stage. But then you start thinking about some of the wider systems capabilities, UTMC, collaborative traffic management plans, exchange information on land use planning, operations, airports. It's a really, really challenging discovery, but with a potential of being really, really meaningful outcomes, I think. And if it achieves nothing else but better communication, that in itself is a really good output. So, our next step on the plan, and I've sort of flown through the plan, and it's been a bit piecemeal, but there is a plan. It's programmed, it's timetabled, it's cost, and ministers have agreed this. It's quite resource intensive, so it takes quite a long time. But we are fully in progress, and we're currently undertaking the service for the TRO discovery. We hopefully in the next several weeks will be awarding the Open Data Local Transport competition results. So hopefully those of you in the audience put your hands up. We'll either know or not know, and you'll either like me or you won't. I don't think you like me anyway, but I'll really try to improve by giving you money, so hopefully that helps. We'll be moving to the detailed design from national access points, and again I think that's something which we'd be really keen to come back and work through with TDI to understand about how we feed into local authorities, how we get close to what the data you have, and how we can think about working, how we can organise and shape that. We need to scope the discovery between Highways England and local authority, because it's certainly my intention to start that in July. So do you know what? We're probably going to come back and talk to you all again. But if we don't talk to you, we don't understand what the user need is. So it's really important you stay engaged with us. We also need to scope the national guidance. And again, we hope to use the TDI as a sounding board at the very least for that, and with the potential to understand, again, what local authorities actually need to know in a guidance documentation. Okay, that's my lot. Thank you very much.